Going from almost zero, because we are talking about an A1 level, to an upper intermediate level. It's not easy. It requires a lot of work. And what you think is a lot of work, triple it again. But I hope with this video to at least show you how much I worked to get to this level and what I was doing on a daily basis for 10 months time. I made it because I was passionate and super motivated. And you can do it too. It requires commitment and a lot of believing in yourself and the right teacher. First, let me give you a bit of a background on how I got started with Spanish and why I chose to learn it. I was 16 years old when I, for the first time, heard Spanish, and I just loved the way it sounds. I started a completely new high school in Poland. I was lost, I didn't have many friends, and everything was new to me. New surroundings, new projects, new subjects, lots of stress. And then it turned out I will have 2 45-minute Spanish lessons per week alongside 30 other students in the same classroom. I'm not very keen on learning anything with so many people. For me, the most effective learning happens one-on-one or by myself, but I remember the moment when I entered the first lesson, the alphabet lesson, and I just loved how this language sounds, and I felt, I don't know, something that I didn't feel with French, which I was learning in previous school. 2 school years passed and we didn't even finish the A1 course book. I wasn't happy about it. It was time when I decided to take matters into my own hands. High school in Poland back then was 3 years, and 2 years already have passed, and during these 2 years with a 30 people class, we were still in the middle of A1 course book. And it came September and I had to decide which subjects I will be passing my advanced exams on. And I knew that for sure it will be English alongside some other subjects, but I love Spanish so much, and at this point I'm not happy at all with where I am with it. And I'm like, okay, Veronica, you can do it. The exam will be in May. How difficult can it be to reach B2 in 9 months? And I'm like, let's find out. Since I already had quite an extensive vocabulary bank from the course books we were using in the class, I knew I had to work on the other aspect, grammar and speaking. At this point I knew a lot of vocabulary, but since I wasn't practicing, I couldn't really make a sentence or communicate. I decided that the first step was to get the simplest and the most complete grammar book in the market that will have me prepared for any surprises during the exam. So here comes tip number 1 to learn Spanish. Get a Gramática del Uso grammar book. I got both, the A1, A2 and the B1, B2 edition. I don't have physical copies anymore since that was 10 years ago, but I remember doing and studying 1 to 3 pages of grammar every single day and the next day. This is not sponsored or anything, it's my genuine recommendation. This book saved my life. It's so simply explained that if you know Spanish on the A1 level, you won't have any problems understanding it. You will find a link to these books in the description under this video. Learning Spanish grammar is great, it's essential, but what I knew was even more essential was to start talking. It was 2014, I didn't know anything about these platforms that exist right now. You know, to go there and talk with people on the internet in order to practice. I'm talking about Tandem and other apps like this that people nowadays use. It just never came to my mind to even research about such things. But I had a desire, I had to talk with someone, but I didn't know with who, so I talked with myself. Every day I would write sentences from the things I've learned, from the grammar book or from other exercises I was doing. Once I would be talking about something I've done yesterday, and once about something that I would be doing next weekend. The most important is to get to talk, just simply talk, create imaginary stories. I was creating them all the time. And that not only helped me to break the ice with the language, but also it gave me the necessary confidence and helped me to not translate in my mind every single time I wanted to say something in Spanish. And here comes tip number 3. Watch Netflix. Watch movies and series on Netflix. That was not a thing back in 2014, and that was not the easiest thing to access Netflix and Spanish-speaking movies from Poland. So I was actually spending hours researching where I can watch some Spanish movies, Spanish series. Usually I was checking those from Antena 3 and watched every single episode that I found. And there comes the best part. no subtitles, only Spanish audio. That's it. So now I would not do this again because there is no point to risk getting caught on streaming some illegal websites. I would just buy a Netflix subscription, and there are so many series available right now. And you can switch between Spanish audio, English subtitles, or only Spanish audio and Spanish subtitles. And there are now so many Spanish series available from both Latin America and Spain. So anyone can just browse and find something for themselves. But if I was in 2014, Netflix would exist in my country, I would definitely purchase Netflix and not stream illegal websites in order to learn a language, because at least I was streaming for a good cause, right? It was so hard in the beginning. I understood maybe 10 to 20% of what the actors were actually saying, but with time I started to catch words, pause, translate, note down the words, to learn them later. If I was to do this now, I would definitely get a Netflix subscription because, as I said, there are just so many series that you can choose from. So I was basically translating, like taking the words that I don't understand and translating them, writing sentences, and so on. And this leads me to number 4, use Google Translate to your advantage. So once I would finish watching an episode of series, I would try to say what the story was about that I just watched, starting from very simple sentences like she left home, looked at him, to more advanced ones, like depending of course what I was watching, what I watched. I was using Google Translate to help me get sense of what I wanted to say, or if I didn't know how to conjugate certain verbs. It's hard in the beginning, but it's such a powerful exercise. Watch the video and try to say what happened. It opens your mind. And that leads me to tip number 5, get a native speaker or a teacher to correct what you wrote and learn from your mistakes. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, finding the right teacher can be tough. You need a teacher that will not only show you the grammar and correct your mistakes, but will also be creating, and on top of that, be on top of like best learning techniques. I was told by a professional teacher that what I want to do, that I want to achieve, is not possible, and I can never reach a B2 level in such a short time. And when I heard this, I just left her house. I was sad and angry, and I was almost thinking about giving up until I found another teacher, smiling, young, motivated, with love for the languages that we were sharing during the class. We both love Spanish, and I used to have 2 45-minute lessons per week on an A1 level at school still, but I arranged with her an additional 1 hour per week, as I remember, after school. And I would be, like talking with her about the series I watched, that she would correct me and also go with me through the past exams, which leads me to point number 6. Go through all the versions of exams if these are available and learn from them. They tend to have a pattern. This tip is particularly useful if you're preparing for a certain exam, but if not, there are tons of tests like past exams, past papers that have all what you are expected to know on a certain level that you're trying to reach. So often exercises repeat with changed or like adjusted vocabulary going through the past exams actually helped me to score almost 80% on my finals. And as I said, I was learning since September and exam was in May, so that is not really a lot of time, but I still managed to do that. And all of that is thanks to the early stages where I just discovered these methods. I was pushing myself, I was not giving up. Going to school was long and very tiring. To reach school, I had to spend over 50 minutes in public crowded transport, and that meant that from the moment of leaving the house to reaching school, I would spend around 1 hour and 15 minutes by public transport. And that public transport, like a bus, would be overcrowded, and to survive in this bus, I was putting my headphones with Spanish songs, and I was forgetting everything. Which leads me to tip number 7, listen to Spanish songs to learn. If you're an A1 level, it will be hard to understand the whole thing, but you will understand certain words. So out of curiosity, check what the remaining words in the sentence mean. Hearing constantly new words as you come back to the songs you listen will make you associate and remember the words. What songs I was listening? well, anything that was available on Spotify for free at the time, from reggaeton to more serious music, like literally everything with a kick of positive energy. So my favorite bands, I would include Manu Chao, Buena Vista Social Club, Calle 13. Check them out if you are into this type of music. Reaching home tired from the crowded bus, I would just, like lay down in bed and rest. But hey, I want my Spanish to be around me all the time. That would be my time of getting myself in between Spanish speakers. I would watch YouTube videos in Spanish and read people's comments to understand the colloquial speech and slang. And this is also tip number 8, use social media to your advantage. Possibly better place to learn how people talk than socials. Of course, you will learn better if you are in Spain or listening to people, but that option wasn't available to me. I was in grey Poland at that time. That tip sort of connects to tip number 9. Let me explain. If I don't understand a comment or a post I find online, I Google for translation, and if I still can't find the answer, I go to Spanish-speaking Facebook groups. There are tons of groups completely free where billions of people ask questions every single day. Why not to use them? You can search for groups where people learn Spanish, Spanish expats, Spanish people abroad, book clubs, hobbies, or whatever you find interesting, where you can find Spanish speakers. People there are usually very helpful. They want to really help you because they appreciate your learning Spanish. So if you ask a question, it's not weird, at least from my experience. And you remember this word which I told you from YouTube channels and scrolling social media? I would make flashcards of them. I didn't know about Anki that time. I would make a separate video about Anki in the future for sure, but a simple pen and paper flashcards would do for me. Let's say I would have found something I didn't understand in the comment section or in the book, like patas arriba, and once I figure out what it means, I would make a flashcard with a simple illustration. I'm a terrible painter, by the way, but that would show basically like legs up, and the other side would be the translation in my language. And then I would do another flashcard with usage of this in the sentence. For example, cuando volvió se encontró la casa and blank, and then patas arriba. So do flashcards and use them to your advantage, and you will see you will level up your Spanish way faster than you think. Another way of revising is making yourself questions. That is tip number 11. For example, did you learn how to use subjuntivo today? From the grammar book. Make a question in Spanish. ¿Cómo dar una orden a mi amiga Gosia? Eat, come. Write the answer on the other side or underneath, the way that you can't see it. I would do that with every single rule I was learning, any new vocabulary. Testing yourself with questions is a very powerful technique. When you make notes and only read them, you don't learn as effectively. That's why I don't do them. I don't own beautifully written notes. And we go to tip number 12, or actually this is more of advice: be genuinely interested. I remember as a 16-year-old, I was dreaming to visit Spain and Latin America, and I would be like researching about cities and wanted to visit a restaurant or trying to get as much insight as possible about certain cities, and that was inspiring me. That was giving me that kick, that emotion, that motivation every single day, and it was giving me hope that one day I will be there and I will be speaking with people in their native language. That was exciting, and you need that when you learn the language, so that gives you this hope, this motivation, this kick. If you commit and constantly revise, tip number 13, you will get to that fluency, to that professional level. If you think you've learned something, that's great, but imagine if you revise it every 2-3 weeks. You will not only remember it for longer, but there will be a higher chance that you will not forget it in the future. What you've learned must have that constant blink back in your mind, so don't leave your language unattended, basically. And so far we've covered 13 tips which are not so difficult to achieve from home with a minimal budget, but now I will give you another 3 tips that may require a small investment, but I've tested them, they are well worth the money and they work. So do a semester abroad if you have such opportunity. As a business student in the UK in 2018, I had this amazing opportunity to go to the University of Valencia in Spain for a whole academic semester, and that was completely free as a part of Erasmus program. I can't describe how amazing it was, not only for myself as a person, to like go engage with people from different cultures, but actually to move a Spanish-speaking country. It wasn't only a dream anymore, it was a reality. Assignments in Spanish, shoppings in Spanish, Spanish speaking with new friends. Is there a better way to practice a language than actually moving to a country? I could continue telling you my experience as a student in Spain, as these were simply one of the most beautiful moments, one of the most beautiful times of my life, but maybe let's leave it for another video and let's go to tip number 15. Find a friend who is a native speaker. I didn't want anymore to do language exchanges with other people who learn Spanish, although this of course has big benefits as well. I wanted to find a friend who is a native. And one time before I even went to the university exchange in Spain, I met one of my best friends with whom I am very close with until today. We met through an app called Couchsurfing. I went to Italy for an event, and unfortunately I didn't make many friends with locals due to a language barrier at that time. But things turned out completely different when we met, and my conversations since we started messaging improved significantly. So if you have such opportunity, make friends with native speakers in real life, not only online, but in real life. Okay, we made it until the end, and before this video finishes, I want to mention you one more thing, and tip number 16 that I feel blessed I had an opportunity to do: go for an intensive Spanish course abroad. I could only afford to go for 2 weeks at that time. These courses are usually expensive since you have to pay to language schools, as you have 3 to 4 hours of lessons per day, and you stay with a host family and live with other students who come to learn Spanish too. But it's so worth it. Not only you make yourself an amazing holiday, but also you use the language, you experience the language, which you will never forget. And my destination was Alicante, Spain, and because we had a direct flight from my city, I stayed in a shared accommodation with a local family, local Spanish family that was. We would eat together, talk, and then I would go to school to have some lessons. And of course I would meet other students, and during classes there was no English rule. We only had to use Spanish to communicate, so that was amazing. And that was my story, my tips, how I reached the B2 level in less than 1 year. Of course I mastered it to more advanced level thanks to the semester abroad and a language course in Spain at a later stage, but the most effective were actually the study techniques, which I practice at home by myself. Keep in mind that these techniques I used almost 10 years ago. As I am learning languages now, I take a bit of a moderated approach, and I will definitely tell you more about it in the upcoming videos. Way more tools are now available, what makes language learning easier and more effective. Anyways, I think with the right interest and passion and like the materials, anyone can do it. What do you guys think? Please tell me your experience with learning Spanish in the comments below. Were you able to reach that B2C1 level? I would love to know, and I'd love to see you next time. Bye!